France's political stability is crumbling.
France's political uncertainty continues to intensify.
Descending into deeper political gridlock.
Economy is in turmoil, debt is mounting, budget deficit has ballooned, and soon it may not have a government.
This is France. It's the 7th largest economy in the world, a founding member of the European Union, and home to 67 million people. But right now it's collapsing. In 18 months, France burned through 5 prime ministers. 5. National debt hit 3.3 trillion euros, the largest in Europe. The government is running a 6.1% deficit, double the EU's legal limit, with zero plan to fix it. All 3 major credit agencies stripped France of its AA status. French bonds now yield the same as Spain's, a country that needed a bailout a decade ago. And here's the terrifying part. France is too big to bail out. Greece was 2% of the Eurozone. France, 20%. There isn't enough money in any rescue fund to save France. If France stumbles, Belgium, Spain, Italy, they all go down. So how did one of the world's wealthiest nations get here? Let's start with the numbers. France's debt hit 114.1% of GDP in 2025, up from 97.9% in 2019. The EU requires member states to keep debt below 60%. France is nearly double. Only Greece at 152.5% and Italy at 137.9% are worse. But here's what makes France different: the trajectory. Greece's debt fell 9.3 percentage points year over year. Portugal dropped 2.7%. Spain declined 2.8%. France, up 3.6 percentage points in 1 year. The IMF projects French debt will hit 128% by 2030, a 30-point jump from pre-pandemic levels. Now the deficit. France ran a 6.1% deficit in 2024, the highest in the Eurozone, double the EU's 3% limit, and it came in 1.4 points worse than the government's own target. Compared to Italy, everyone worries about Italy with 137.9% debt, but Italy's deficit fell from 7.4% to 3.4% and runs a primary surplus. France runs a primary deficit of 3.8%, one of the worst in Europe. Then there's interest. France spends 67 to 70 billion euros yearly just on interest. That's 2.5% of GDP and rising. France's fiscal watchdog warned debt service could hit 100 billion euros by 2029, the single largest budget item. Bigger than education, bigger than defense, bigger than anything. France could soon spend more paying interest on old debt than protecting the country. So how did France get here? You'd think it's about economics, right? It's politics. And it's a disaster. June 2024, President Macron called a snap election to strengthen his position. Instead, he created a nightmare. The election produced a hung parliament. Since then, France cycled through 5 prime ministers in under 2 years. Michel Barnier, 3 months. François Bayrou, 9 months. Sébastien Lecornu, weeks. Each tried passing budgets requiring 44 to 60 billion euros in cuts. Each faced gridlock. Each rammed budgets through without votes using Article 49.3, bypassing Parliament. Each time, no confidence motions brought down the government. Why does this keep happening? The election shattered Parliament into 3 hostile blocs. These blocs agree on nothing except destroying each other. Far left and far right unite solely to topple governments with zero interest in actually governing. August 2025, Finance Minister Lombard said, "Intervention from the International Monetary Fund is a risk that is in front of us. An IMF bailout of France." That's now on the table. France needs 120 billion euros in cuts through 2029, but 31 billion euros, 80%, remains unidentified, just fictional numbers on spreadsheets. Moody's was blunt. Very low probability the next government will sustainably reduce deficits given political fragmentation. Markets don't lie. French 10-year bond yields jumped to 3.61%, a full percentage point higher than in 2023. The spread with Germany, once near zero, blew out to its widest since 2012 and now sits around 76 to 84 basis points. France used to borrow almost like Germany. Now it pays rates closer to Spain, Portugal, and even Greece, countries once bailed out for default. Credit ratings collapsed too. S&P, Fitch, and Moody's all cut France to A+, 2 notches down in just 18 months. That's the same as Belgium and Estonia, barely above Spain. Debt is projected to hit 121% of GDP by 2027, with no stabilization in sight. Political turmoil is feeding a vicious cycle: weaker growth, higher debt, and more instability. France's debt crisis is a ticking time bomb. France makes up 20% of the Eurozone economy. By comparison, during the last crisis in 2010 to 2012, Greece, Ireland, and Portugal together were only 6%. French debt is 3.3 trillion euros, bigger than Spain's and even larger than Italy's. Europe's bailout fund is 410 billion euros. That might save Italy for a year, but France would burn through it much faster. There is no backup plan. Banks are deeply tied in. French banks hold €500 billion in French bonds. Italian and Spanish banks are heavily exposed too. German and Belgian banks also hold huge amounts. If French bonds collapse, banks lose money, lending freezes, and the same doom loop from the last debt crisis comes back. The domino effect is clear. Belgium first, then Austria, then Italy, and finally Spain. The IMF is warning, debt in many EU countries is on an explosive path. Another European debt crisis could be just around the corner. So what happens now? There are basically three ways this could play out. The first scenario is what most people expect. France just limps along, deficits stay high, debt keeps rising, nothing really gets fixed. France stays afloat but becomes the sick man of Europe. The second scenario is the optimistic one. Somehow, a stable government emerges and actually fixes things. They cut spending, boost growth, get debt under control. The third scenario is the nightmare, full-blown crisis. Governments keep collapsing, markets panic. French borrowing costs explode. And here's where Europe gets dragged in. Across Europe, the bonds crash. Credit markets freeze across the continent. The European Central Bank is forced to step in with emergency measures, or France has to request a humiliating bailout. GDP shrinks, debt spirals completely out of control. One French minister warned the country faces financial tutelage by 2028, basically having outsiders manage France's finances like a failed state. The odds? Most analysts think France muddles through, but there's a real 15 to 20% chance of the nightmare scenario. And that's not nothing. The critical period is 2026 to 2027. The 2026 budget is the first test. Rating reviews scheduled: S&P November 2025, Moody's mid-2026, Fitch Q3 2026. Any could trigger BBB plus downgrades, forcing institutional selling. Political paralysis persists through mid-2026. The 2027 presidential election dominates through spring 2027. Don't expect reform until late 2027 at earliest. But France may not have that long. France's crisis isn't just about France. It's a test of whether the Eurozone can survive a core member in fiscal chaos. Whether Europe can make difficult choices, or whether fragmentation has made that impossible. The answers will determine not just France's fate, but Europe's trajectory for decades to come.